Hello, and welcome to this workshop challenge number one for project managers, how to get all the players on board. Because if we don't have the right people actually in the project, then it can be very hard to actually do it. So this is a typical business challenge that you've got some sort of initiative, or it might be called an assignment or a project or a venture or whatever. To do that, project management is the skill set that helps us do that, helps us finish on time and within budget, which are two things people are always looking for, regardless of whether you're using Agile or predictive or any combination. And with managed risks, so they don't want the highest of risks just because there's a trade-off somewhere else. You need to have the risks sensible, if we put it that way. And this is pretty important for projects that, for example, are expensive. Say like infrastructure, you don't want them to overrun by millions, naturally enough. Urgent, if you need something to happen as quick as it can, then using project management skills will help you get things done on time and maybe faster than you might have done otherwise. You might have a situation where your project is distributed and the people are in different places. And then when you try and engage with them, they're terribly busy doing something else locally. It's very hard to get them moving. And it could even be global, where you have people in different countries, different cultures, the different languages, different ways of interacting, and so forth. So what we have at Scatterwork is we've put this together in a package of 9 challenges of project management. And they cover the most of the things that you're likely to come up with in project management at the highest level. And what we're talking about today is how to get all the players on board. So just to introduce Scatterwork, these are various things that we do, engagement models that we have for working with people like yourselves. One-to-one project coaching is really, it's a training in the ordinary sense, but maybe for somebody who can't come and they say, I just can't come every Monday for 5 weeks or something like that. And so the compromise is that they're on their own, they get their own trainer and they work through the stuff. They don't have the benefit of inputs from other people, but they do have the flexibility of time. The second thing we have is fast track project workshops. If you've got some assignment that needs to start up quickly, and the people who are doing it, they're almost certainly experts in their own area, but they may not be experts in projects. And we can help speed things up and get them going properly and in the right direction. We do project consulting, of course. And we are also available as a project learning partner for a company across the board, maybe over a period of years, where they, from time to time, they need training and support consulting in project management. And we be the people to work with them. And maybe some of the things that they need done will be done from our own palette. And then there might be some other things where we bring people in from somewhere else. But basically, all things project, we can help them with. We also offer PMP training through a partner, which is an ATP, an authorized training partner of the Project Management Institute. So that puts us in a position to offer that. And then we have a couple of free things like workshops, this one here, and another one, a free project health check. This is very good because it's very easy to access. You just go on our website and it'll ask you questions about your current project or the thing that you're just starting on, maybe just to get you thinking. And then you can print that out. And if you want to talk to us about it, you can do that as well. And that's all a free service. So here's how you sign up. You just go to scatterwork.com. So why work with us? Well, we empower teams to achieve priorities and drive success. And we've done it throughout the world over the years. We work with big and small clients, and at the top and bottom of the organization, we're very flexible that way. We work across the entire spectrum. Consultants are in various places around the world, whether from United States or India or Egypt and so on, and they all have PMP qualification. And I myself, I'm the founder of CEO of Scatterwork, which has been going since 2008. So we've a lot of experience built up in that time. So the challenge number one, how to get the players on board. So a project it uses equipment and people and so forth to do something which hasn't been done exactly like that before. A sort of once-off delivery of some sort. And a lot of companies, they do projects that are very similar to what they did the last time. That's how they make their money. They do the same again and it works. But there still will be details which are different. The person who's involved and the location and the model of the equipment and things like that. But because it's unique, it can be very hard to get people involved. So you start explaining what you're doing and they think, yeah, but they don't really listen because they're not part of it. They're not turned on because they don't see it in front of their eyes. So what we're going to do in this module here is to put together an executive summary, which is focused particularly, or part of it is anyway, on getting people involved who say, I heard you talk about your project, and actually that's very interesting for me, or it's relevant for me. I want to stay in touch with what's happening there. And then you can use that summary to explain the project to anyone that you meet on your travels who is coming new into the project. It could be a new employee who's a tech expert of some sort, or it could be maybe a courier driver and you want them to deliver something rather important, and then you want to tell them what it's about. Or maybe you want to talk to a financial controller of another division who is visiting you or something. But you want it simple enough that that everyone can say, oh, yeah, that's easy. I know what you're talking about. So this is what we do. So we write an executive summary, but we write it in such a way that part of it will attract people to be involved. So obviously it should use very clear, focused language. And I find it's really helpful to stick to dictionary words there, particularly if you're working internationally. Otherwise, it can be very hard to look them up and you're not quite sure what they mean. And you need to say in this what you want people to do. You're trying to recruit people into your project to actually do something. And if you have something generic, I'd like a bit of help on this particular area, something, then that's too generic. But if you say to them, I need this and this and this done, it's easier for people to say yes. So you could say that the summary that we're talking about is like this famous elevator pitch. You're in an elevator and it's going up so many stores, in a lift, I would call it. And it's going to take 15 or 20 seconds. And the person who's next to you is a really important person. And you'd love to tell them very quickly what you're doing. And you need to do it in some sort of very concise way. So that can take a lot of doing to get the wording of that right. So, but the sort of thing that you tell them what you do, the assignment will save $1 million and open up new business, is not going to attract people into the project. That's going to be of interest, for example, to management. They say, oh yeah, you've understood what we want. Yeah, very good. You do that. So we need additional information to attract contributors to work with you. So maybe how long it will take the project, where it will be. Maybe it's a repeat, or you did something like that before. I did one particular project, and I remember there were people involved going to Bratislava. And then when they came back, they were reporting on what it was like in Bratislava. And one of the key things they mentioned is that the office was across the way from a big shopping center. So, I mean, that was of relevance to people because they thought, well, if I'm going away from home, at least I'd like to get something useful out of it. And that was one way of doing that. So we use this summary to support anyone who's going to come into contact with the project, to brief them, and they say, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. And it works because it's directed at the people that you want in the project. And if you don't do that, you don't get assigned people, then the project won't work. So here's an example that I met. There was a company that sold a commercial email system for about 2 decades, quite a long time. So obviously at the end of 20 years, it was a pretty old system. And they also had an old billing system. And they decided what they needed to do was support the customers to a modern email system, which they did. And then they got to the accountants and they said, well, you do the same thing with the billing system. And the accountants got annoyed. And the reason was they should have been involved right at the beginning. They wouldn't have need to be active, but they should have had this in focus, that this project is coming. And when we get to such and such a stage, we'll be coming in and doing our bit. So this was a case where the right people were not on board. So that's exactly what we're talking about in this workshop, is how do I get the people in that I need in the project to do what I'm going to do. So here's an example. This is a real example. It came up during COVID, actually, because and it'll give us some discussion and thoughts around this idea. So you're an engineer working in a factory which makes looms for high quality cloth. And until the COVID pandemic, engineers used to travel around and commission these machines. So they would sell a machine and then send an engineer after it to fix it up. And that was fine. But then when COVID came, they couldn't do that anymore. So they had a challenge. And then they realized that this approach is very inefficient and it sends engineers around and it costs money and flights and hotels and all the rest of it. And you've been assigned the job of drafting a new project, a sort of a standard project to handle the commissioning, but without travel. So at the end, you'll have a new process, a new process. We're not asking you to improve the thing technically, but we're saying to have a new process so that you can commission the thing without travel. And then you say, well, how is that possible? And the answer is, well, your customer, your client, they know your equipment. That's why they're buying it. So it's pretty easy to tell them, well, when you get it, do this, do that, do the other thing. And of course, some of the clever bits, the secret sauce, as it were, you can do them. And if you're really lucky, you might be able to do it by somebody standing at the equipment with a webcam or something, and you telling them what to do without any travel at all. So the deliverable of this is actually a new process, so that the equipment can be set up without having to travel. That's what the project's all about. So what information is important for project clients, participants? I mean, I mentioned the situation there that where they were going to be was near a shopping center. That could be relevant, or it could be that they're miles from the airport, or that it's very heavy weather of some sort, very hot or very cold, or something that they need to know about. Or it could be they need to know about things like visas. They need to know what country it's in. Everyone has different passports, and they're not all equally sort of powerful, if that's the right word for traveling around. And some people going to some countries would have to apply in advance, and it would take effort and time and so on to do that. So what sort of details are you going to mention in this executive summary? And the executive summary is of the project that develops a new process for commissioning these machines. So the sort of things that I would be inclined to mention is that this is an evolution that we used to do it manually, and we're now doing it remotely, and we're relying on the skill set of our customers to do it. And then that gives them, obviously it reduces our costs and it gives everyone better value for money, makes us more competitive and so forth. So those sort of things you might mention in the summary. What physical resources are you going to need to do this project? So remember, your project is to put together a new process. So you probably want somebody who would normally have done the commissioning, an engineer, somebody like that, and to advise you on the content. But there might also be human resource people. For example, there might be something to do with, shall we say, training people, and the human resource people would need to know, well, who and who's going to do this training, who knows it well enough to lead it through, and so forth. And what else is relevant? Maybe something to do with what it costs, or how long it's going to take, or the expectations of business, or something like that. So that's the way that it works, that we have this discussion here around that. And we're thinking particularly, how do we get people into our project? So here's a few more tips that would apply to the executive summary. And part of that summary, as I say, is written so that it's attractive to people to join our project. So have a verb in the title. So say our project is to develop a new process for commissioning or something like that. It's not to abandon a process. It's not to to take out of service or something like that. But if you just had the title of commissioning, you don't know what they're going to do. So you have to have something, I believe, that says what we're going to do. Be legible. Yeah. Explain simply what your project is trying to do. I find sometimes people, they try to impress and they use, all the big words, and actually you don't know what they're talking about. What you really need on a project is something that's so simple that everyone says, yeah, it's obvious. And then they'll do what you want them to do. Be clear of the scope of the work and who might be involved. Obviously, if you don't know what the scope is, then the people you bring in, you're not able to be clear with them. Give them an idea of the order of magnitude, how long is this going to take, roughly what budget, how many people are involved, those sort of things people would like to know, because there's a very big difference between, one person being involved in something briefly and maybe 10 people for a year. It's different, clearly. Where the work will be done, they probably want to know that, and highlight any issues or risks that would be worth thinking about. You don't have to get started to ask those sort of questions. And ask, you also need to know the organization, because a project is not just a technical thing. You're interacting with somebody who wants the project. And let's call that person generically the sponsor. The person who gives you the assignment, and you're the project manager. The linkage between those two is very important, because when you do a project, you're doing it for a person. They will have requirements, and they'll be dressed up as being very business relevant and so forth. But actually, at the end of the day, the requirements come from people. So if you're doing it on a flip chart, you might end up with something like this. And then you can tidy it up and put it on a cloud document of some sort. And the key learning at the end is that this executive summary is the introduction to your project charter. It's the very beginning, and it sets the scene so that people can see what you're talking about. And it's terribly simple to do, but our purpose of doing it is to make sure that we get the right people putting their hand up and saying, oh yeah, I want to be involved in that project. Tell me when we get that far. So in summary, what we're talking about is a project involves people, and we're trying to sell it specifically at the people we want to join the project, as well as selling it for management. And they say, oh yeah, that's wonderful, you're doing exactly right, and so on. But an element of it needs to be focused on these people that we need to work with us. And we've been emphasizing that, and we put whatever statement that we're going to put in our executive summary, it'll be worded in such a way to make it attractive to those people. So there you have it. Thanks very much indeed. Good to work with you. Thank you.